Good evening from New York. I'm Chris Hayes. It is official now, as I speak to you tonight, that the Attorney General of the United States and the Department of Justice are colluding with the president and his campaign to sabotage the legitimacy of the upcoming election. Now, this has long been the fear of those of us who care about our fate of our democracy. I mean, Attorney General Barr has been telegraphing this was the play for a while now. He's been going around lying about the rates of mail-in voter fraud, boosting the president's dangerous and insidious false narrative. He even went so far as to tell a completely false, inflammatory story about a supposed case of fraud in Texas, which he later had to correct. Went on TV and did that. But yesterday we saw the first instance of all the machinery working together. Okay? The president, his campaign, DOJ, even a local U.S. attorney, all collaborating to essentially sow disinformation. Remember, back in the 2016 campaign, this was sort of a big part of how Trump won. You had Russian intelligence, WikiLeaks, and the Trump campaign, and Trump himself. They were all working in the same direction, right? They were all working towards the same end, which was to spread narratives that helped Donald Trump and hurt Hillary Clinton. And that is happening again. But this time, the president and his campaign don't really even need Russia or WikiLeaks because they have the apparatus of the United States government. They have William Barr. Now, take a listen to see how the story emerged yesterday on this local news report out of Philadelphia.
Federal and state officials are investigating an issue concerning mail-in ballots in Luzerne County, Pennsylvania. That's the Wilkes-Barre area. The U.S. attorney issued a statement saying 9 mail-in ballots from military members were found discarded. 7 were cast for President Trump. 2 had been resealed. It's not known which candidate those ballots favored.
Now, the first person to actually break the story was not a reporter. It was the president himself in a radio interview yesterday morning with Brian Kilmeade of Trump TV.
These ballots are a horror show. They found 6 ballots in an office yesterday in a garbage can. They were Trump ballots, 8 ballots in an office yesterday in a certain state. And they had Trump written on it, and they were thrown in a garbage can. This is what's going to happen. This is what's going to happen. And we're investigating that.
By the way, him getting the number wrong twice, even changing it in the middle of his spiel, but never getting it correct is like really perfect. Okay, so within a few hours, right, Trump says that. It's like, whoa, ballot, they found Trump ballots thrown out. The U.S. attorney then for the Middle District of Pennsylvania dutifully puts out this statement announcing, indeed, his office and the local branch of the FBI, this is serious business, they were conducting an ongoing inquiry into reports of potential issues with a small number of mail-in ballots at the Luzerne County Board of Elections. Statement continued, we could confirm a small number of military ballots were discarded. Investigators have recovered 9 ballots at this time. All 9 ballots were cast for presidential candidate Donald Trump. Da-dum. Shortly thereafter, that statement was deleted because it was wrong and replaced with this one, correcting the ballot count to 7 out of 9 cast for presidential candidate Donald Trump. 2 of the discarded ballots had been resealed inside their appropriate envelopes by Luzerne election staff prior to recovery by the FBI, and the contents of those 2 ballots are unknown. And we subsequently learned the reason the president was the first to break this story ahead of both of these statements from the U.S. Attorney's Office. A Justice Department official told ABC News Today the president was briefed on the investigation into these 9 ballots by none other than Attorney General Barr. So Barr tells the president all about it. The president goes on Fox News Radio to reveal it publicly. Look, the Democrats are throwing out my ballots, military ballots at that. And then immediately the Trump campaign whirred into motion, pushing out the story, like the Trump campaign's deputy communications director, which what an amazing job that is to have, who wrote out this since deleted tweet, breaking, FBI finds military mail-in ballots discarded in Pennsylvania. 100% of them were cast for President Trump. Democrats are trying to steal the election. I mean, they got that wrong. Just to be clear, they just keep getting things wrong because they're incapable of getting things right. But that's the message. They are throwing out Trump ballots. The Democrats are committing fraud. They're stealing the election. Okay, so what the heck was actually going on with these ballots in Pennsylvania? Well, it appears to be an almost comically innocent story about a clerical error likely driven by the Trump campaign's own lawsuit. So let me explain, okay? The first absentee ballots that typically get mailed out are those from military and civilians overseas because it takes a while, and we want to make sure those people have enough time to vote and send their ballots back to the U.S. So county officials in Luzerne, Pennsylvania, sent out those special ballots for the overseas folks beginning on August 25th of this year. They have not yet started out sending out the other absentee ballots. According to those local elections officials, there's a little problem. The problem is they're now receiving envelopes containing those military and civilian ballots from overseas, and also very physically similar looking envelopes containing absentee ballot request forms. They explained to investigators that the staff believed that adhering to the protocol of preserving envelopes unopened would cause them to miss ballot requests. So you're sitting in this office. Apparently, this was like a contractor who had worked there for a few days. They get an envelope. They don't know if it's a ballot request or if there's an actual ballot inside. So they open it thinking maybe it's a ballot request. I don't want to miss that, even though ballots are not supposed to be opened until Election Day. We don't know the details about these specific, again, 9 ballots. But we do know that absentee ballots in Pennsylvania are supposed to be sealed in a secrecy envelope and then placed in another return envelope to preserve the privacy of the vote. So if someone at the Board of Elections opens an envelope, mistakenly thinking it's a request form, and then it turns out, oh no, whoops, I'm looking at a ballot with no secrecy envelope, you might think, well, no big deal. Just reseal it and count the ballot. But no, because maybe you'll remember that the Trump campaign and the Republican Party went to court over just that issue, successfully suing in Pennsylvania to have those ballots without secrecy envelopes, so-called naked ballots, thrown out. So we do not yet know for sure, but it seems plausible, perhaps the most likely explanation, that that is what may have happened with these, again, 9 ballots. Clearly, someone messed up. These envelopes should not have been opened. And of course, ballots should not be randomly thrown away. Don't do that. That's bad. But there is zero evidence of anything deliberately criminal happening here at all. And it is completely inappropriate for the U.S. Attorney's Office to be basically live tweeting their findings as they investigate this, including have to pull them down and correct them. DOJ policy calls for keeping voter fraud investigations under wraps to avoid affecting the election outcome. This was an obvious, clear violation of that policy by the U.S. Attorney and William Barr, the president. But now we see what the plan is, okay? There are going to be tens of millions of mail-in ballots cast in this country over the next 39 days. And every election year, even in normal years, without that volume of mail-in ballots, right? Even just normal machinery, or there are screw-ups, there's misprinted ballots, there's names missing from voter rolls, there's issues with machines, logistical issues. They are real. They're not all that rare. Often, as we have documented on this show, these logistical issues disproportionately disenfranchise people of color. But now imagine a politicized Department of Justice seeking to seize on every logistical hiccup and blast it out to the nation as smoking gun evidence of a vast conspiracy to steal the election from the president. That is what they did yesterday. That is what they are doing. The plan, as reporter Bart Gellman laid out so clearly this week in The Atlantic, is to use fraud as a justification to challenge the results and then use whatever tools possible to keep Donald Trump in power. And never has the plan been more obvious.